Just like fell to the ground. And I didn't know for sure because women clot in pregnancy. They pass clots and some turn out to be just fine, healthy babies. But there was something in me that I felt like break. I just dropped to the ground and was just sobbing. And you came in a minute later. I think you probably heard me or something. And that series of moments, we were probably in the bathroom for 10 minutes. I just couldn't move. I was crying. That was probably the most grief I've ever felt in my life. It just felt like my heart just was ripped out of my chest. This was an embryo. It was 16 days in.
Yeah.
It's just wild how much you can love a little embryo that you've never met and have never even felt move inside of me. Welcome back to the Medicine Podcast. It's Mimi, and I'm staring at the beautiful blue eyes of my partner in life and love, Chase.
I saw on Instagram the other day, I don't know what they call them. They're not memes because they're someone tweeting something.
Yeah.
And it was Our Father who art in heaven, Baha be thy blast. And every time I wear the shirt, I feel like Baha be thy blast.
You are definitely Baha be thy blast.
And I've got this combination of sliced watermelon in a glass bottle here mixed with Organifi Pure and some Element electrolytes. It is so good.
Wow, I need to try it.
Everybody out there, giant hack. Basically just free. I mean, well, it's not free because you have to pay for the watermelon, but watermelon in your water is so delicious. It beats any flavored anything, and it actually structures your water. We've talked about structuring water often on this show, and so I highly recommend y'all get yourself some watermelon this summer, throw it in your water, see what happens.
Wow.
You may just Baha be thy blast.
You totally gave that information the guys that are fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
Fuck around with some watermelon water and find out.
So if you're listening and not watching, well, you should. I'm wearing a beautifully colorful shirt. But if you're listening, you might hear a gulp every now and then, and that's me chugging down this water.
Okay. And I got my electrolytes next to me. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, this is a little bit of a non-traditional episode.
Yeah, it's definitely an episode and a topic that I did not anticipate recording.
Yeah. Basically a life update.
Yeah.
We've had a lot going on. We actually haven't really recorded a podcast in quite some time because we had so much in the bank. Many of you listened to our astrology series while we were in Greece and Italy. And then we actually had quite a few episodes even ready when we got back to release because we have moved. We've been in the process of moving over the last month. We rented out our San Diego condo and are spending 3 months in North Idaho. We are at the beautiful Priest Lake right now. And then we'll be spending 9 months in Sedona, Arizona next year. Mm-hmm. And so we moved a little bit to Sedona, the rest of it to Idaho, rented out the condo, and off we were. But it was in those 30 days really on the back end of the most beautiful month of May that I could have possibly imagined in Greece and Italy, what we called our part 2 honeymoon.
Trip of a lifetime.
Really bucket list trip for me.
Best trip of my life for sure.
And we stepped into that experience with the intention of really starting this family, this second opportunity that we've had in our relationship now that we've put 5-6 years into. I don't even know at this point how long part 2 has been. But this was really the opening ceremony, if you will, to starting a family. Mm-hmm. And so for the first time ever, we had sex without a condom or birth control, I should say. And we intentionally started to make the attempt at conception. Mm-hmm. And to our surprise, really, we got pregnant first shot.
Yeah. Yeah, you swished the first shot. We actually found out the last day that we were in Italy. I was a day late on my period and was not expecting a positive result at all, really. But obviously knew it was a potential. And I brought some pregnancy tests with me. I knew I would be in the window there where I could find out. And I was in the bathroom and I took a pregnancy test and waited patiently and saw that double line appear. And I was just like, oh my God. It was very faint. So I was like also Googling, like, what does faint line mean?
Yeah.
And I come out of the bathroom like 10 minutes later. Chase probably like thought there was something wrong, but I come out of the bathroom and he's in the bedroom and I was just like, I think it's positive. And then we hugged, and I just immediately started just projectile crying, just like straight up ugly cry. And I was just like, I just kept saying over and over, like, I'm so happy. I'm so happy. And it was honestly, yeah, it was the happiest I can remember being in a very long time.
Yeah. And I was obviously very happy for that as well. But then just to see you glowing was really beautiful. And the whole thing was just magical. I mean, on the back end of this dreamlike trip that we had through the Mediterranean, and then being amongst friends. We found out in Italy, we were with a group of people, many of which are dear friends of ours.
Yeah.
And we got to share that moment with them. And it's funny because so many people through the course of the week were like, you guys look pregnant. Like, you guys look like you're glowing. And so it was seemingly perfect. Lots of synchronicities, lots of little nudges that felt like, wow, this is so what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it just felt so perfect. And so like, wow, that was easy.
Right, yeah.
Like, we did not have any expectations going into, we didn't put any pressure on ourselves to like swish the first shot. We honestly, I thought it was going to take a few months.
Yeah.
And so when it was like, just like that, I was like, wow, that was really easy. And everything felt so perfect. I felt great. And then coming back home was like right at the beginning of June, basically. And we knew that we had to start prepping our condo.
Yeah.
Basically immediately.
Yeah.
Move out.
We had guests coming in. We had a lot of business to catch up on after a month. And so we were stepping back into what we knew was going to be a tidal wave of work over the course of like 3 or 4 weeks before we actually moved. But we were just riding high off of the trip and off of the news of our pregnancy. We surprised all of our family with the news, which was super exciting. And obviously, we're later in the game compared to our siblings. We're like the last ones in our family to be pregnant. And so I think the question a lot of times, especially with me, has been like, will he ever be interested in having kids? And so I think everybody was just elated for us and told some close friends as well. And very, very exciting stuff, despite the fact that we had just complete chaos going on in our lives after having been gone a month and trying to move.
I knew that month, being pregnant and knowing how much we had to do still, like how much work it was going to take for us to move and do all of that. I was a little nervous about being pregnant through that. Just because I know, like, personally, I've always wanted to like be very mindful of where I'm putting my energy and not straining myself over the top, not having like, not just not being overwhelmed with stress in pregnancy. And I was like, okay, I'm going to really have to zen myself and try to not feel guilty with Chase literally picking up everything heavy and all of that. So it was definitely like on my mind, like, okay, this is going to be a juggle.
Yeah. And so about 10 days into June, 9-10 days into June, we'd been home for almost 2 weeks. And I think the count was around 6 to 7 weeks. Technically, we had been, or you'd been pregnant, is when, things started to get complicated.
Yeah. Yeah. My sister was actually visiting Andrea. And it was on a Saturday. We were about to go for a hike and I went to the bathroom, just peed, and I saw like a little, just slight pink, on the toilet paper. And I was like, I was like, oh, that's weird. But I wasn't really worried about it. And I just mentioned it to my sister. And she's like, oh, yeah, I spotted with every pregnancy. And so I was like, oh, okay. Didn't really think about it. And we went on the hike, came back. And over the course of the next 24 hours, every time I went to the bathroom, it was a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And I started to not get super worried because, again, she was like, yeah, it's totally normal. And when you go on the internet, you can literally find,
Oh my God.
you can go, like I was going on forums and chat boards and, the apps that I'm a part of, like What to Expect app has a whole community of like thousands and thousands of women. There's every variation of bleeding that you can imagine is considered normal in pregnancy, from spotting to clotting, like big clots. And I was like, okay, so I didn't want to jump to like worst case scenario, but like I wanted to figure out why. And so I started, I was texting Nathan, I was texting, Marissa, my doula. And because we were moving, in the process of moving, I hadn't gotten set up with a provider in San Diego because we were literally on our way out. And so I was, in talks with and scheduling with a group of midwives in Spokane because we're going to be here up at Priest Lake for the next 3 months. And I was like, okay, I'll just get established in Spokane and I can make trips back and forth. It'll be great. And so I didn't really have a provider, but I had, obviously friends in the community that I was hitting up and talking to and like, what does this mean? Like, what could it mean? What should I do? Is there anything I can do? And really there's nothing you can do. And you just don't know. So I was kind of in limbo. And so that was Saturday, and then, bled a little bit more all the way through Sunday. And then Monday morning, I was laying in bed and, well, back up to Sunday night. I don't know if I'm sure you remember this. Like, I just went to bed and I just had this like, just had an awful feeling. And, I think it was my intuition, not fear or anything like that. It was just like intuition. Like, I think I know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt awful, basically cried myself to sleep. And you like held me for 2 hours, like just, I just couldn't stop crying. And finally went to sleep. And then the next morning woke up, 6 a.m. or whatever. And just was laying in bed, still the same awful feeling. And as soon as I moved in the bed, I felt like a gush inside me. I felt like a gush of what I knew was blood. And so I go to the bathroom and I'm just like, I don't even want to look. I don't even want to know. I don't even want to wipe. I just knew. I felt it. And sure enough, I get up and there's, big clot, and I just lost it. I just like fell to the ground. And again, I didn't know for sure because women clot in pregnancy. They pass clots and some turn out to be just fine, healthy babies. But there was something in me that like I felt like break. And I just dropped to the ground and was just sobbing, and you came in like a minute later. I think you probably heard me or something. And that series of moments, we were probably in the bathroom for like 10 minutes. Like I just couldn't move. I was crying. That was probably the most grief I've ever felt in my life. It just felt like my heart just like was ripped out of my chest. And it's so wild because this was an embryo. Mm-hmm. It was 16 days in.
Yeah.
And it's just wild how much you can love a little embryo that you've never met. And I've never even felt like move inside of me. I felt it like the implantation process, and I felt like cramping here and there. I felt like my boobs growing. Of course, like you feel things around the pregnancy, but the baby's not kicking yet. It's not even a baby yet. It's an embryo. It's getting there, right? And it was just wild how much grief I felt in that moment.
Well, from the moment we found out that we were pregnant, this being entered the chat, of our life. And the whole trip home, the 29-hour travel day that we had felt different. Those 10 to 14 days that we were back in San Diego, the house felt different. It felt like we had this other presence. And we were operating at a new level of basically trying on for size this energetic shift that we'd stepped into as parents.
A new identity, really.
Totally. And then add the magic of the whole month and the fact that we had just been cradled by friends and family for how excited they were for this. Throw all of that into the mixture, and it's just heartbreaking, man. It's just completely tragic. And I realize, we are very aware of the statistics. We know that this is not even close to uncommon. And miscarriages, especially early, are, some say up to 40%. A very normal thing. And it wasn't even the rational part of our brains really has had no quote unquote problem with this. The thing that's been really fascinating is how much this fucking hurt. And for me in those moments, I just kind of stepped in and was immediately aware that this was the most intense grief I've ever seen you in, the most emotional pain I've ever seen you in. And, in my nervous system, it went directly to just safety, protection, container holding. And I was absolutely emotional, but was also in this holy shit, okay, I'm going to just be a solid rock for us in this moment. There was plenty of sadness to go around. And for me, I just intuitively felt that it was this, I'm just going to be a complete rock solid foundation for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, no, I appreciated that. And I definitely felt your sadness, but I appreciated, there's nothing you can do but just hold me. Be.
Yeah.
And you canceled everything in your work day that day, and was grateful for just time with you. And obviously I updated our, friends, Nathan and my doula, and shout out to Marissa, who is my absolute angel through this process.
Marissa, who's been on the podcast, and her husband Niels, have been on the podcast, are, literally some of our best friends in the whole world, just dropped everything to help us out.
Yeah.
Just absolutely incredible. And we kind of rushed into to see a midwife through Marissa's connections at a birthing center in San Diego. And so it sounds like, the process that you go through is there. Clotting can be very common with just pregnancy. And so again, you go down the rabbit hole on these really tragic forums for miscarriages and pregnancy complications, which, was a very educational experience for me, and candidly one that I hope I never have to go back into, because it'll tear your heart out. Hearing the anecdotal experiences of these folks going through challenges in their pregnancies. And so combination of things, right? It can be one thing, just maybe a somewhat irregular bleeding, but the pregnancy is still totally on track. It can be chemical pregnancy, miscarriage scenario, or it can be, maybe something dangerous, like an ectopic pregnancy, high risk pregnancy that is producing this level of, inflammation in blood, et cetera, et cetera. And so the recommendation is go get your blood work and to rule
get
out
an ultrasound.
Anything, get an ultrasound. And so kind of our immediate action was, all right, let's find an OBGYN somewhere to get, I almost said acupuncture, get a ultrasound, which was proving to be challenging. And so we went with blood work immediately. And again, shout out to Tourmaline in San Diego, they got us in right away, and
They were great.
Drew some blood, and were really just emotionally supportive and educational around, what the process looks like here. And so, yeah, we did that for a couple days, couple rounds of blood work, and then really felt like, hey, this is sort of coming to some level of closure. There's no other signs necessarily of what would be considered high risk pregnancy, but we still did end up going into the ER, which was kind of our last option for getting an ultrasound.
Yeah, well, I had called like 10 different OB offices to try and get in because I was just like, I'm pretty sure I know what has happened, know what's happening, but getting an ultrasound is important just to like make sure. And because blood work isn't absolutely definitive, you're looking at the HCG levels, the hormone levels in the blood, and if they're going down, that's indicative that the body's releasing the pregnancy or that it's a loss, but not always. And so, ultrasound was like the only way to kind of really confirm. And yeah, couldn't get in, and so I was like, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. Like I need to get this done. So we were able to go into our local Coronado ER, and they saw us pretty quickly actually, and we were there for like 2 hours and got a ultrasound, and it was confirmed what I had dreaded but thought. Then it was like, okay, I need to do something to close this knot, to close this loop, because I was just feeling such an immense amount of grief. And one of the learnings that I was going to share in just a bit, which I guess we can get into now, but one of the learnings, reflecting back on this whole process and experience, was like so much empathy for women who have experienced this, whether it be strangers or friends or family in my life that have experienced this, just having the empathy and understanding, what they went through and the pain and the grief. And I can very easily see how a woman could slip into depression, with certain variables being a little different. I don't think that my experience, I wouldn't categorize it as I was in a depressed state or anything. I mean, obviously my light was very dim, but I wouldn't have considered myself depressed. But I can see how you could very easily slip into that. If you don't have a great supportive partner or supportive community, if, you were really attached to this pregnancy for whatever reason, a host of other things. But I want to share later why I want to share like what kept me out of that state, which I guess I'll share now. We decided to have a little ceremony for this life that I carried for 16 days. And I just knew that I needed something to close the loop, to honor this life, and to also keep our hearts open to our forever baby. So I just kind of laid in bed all day and really thought about like, what do I want to do here? What do I need? What does my spirit, what does my soul need from this experience? And I was just journaling a bit, and I wrote a love letter to our little spirit baby, our little Naxos baby, I called it. And I just poured my heart out and wrote this love letter. And so in that evening after dinner, it got dark. We turned off all the lights. I lit some candles, set out my little yoga mat with some spots for us. Got our little Tibetan singing bowl. I put on music. Shout out to Do Perot, Divine Surrendering. Holy shit, that song. Oh, I'll put a link to it in the show notes. It just like cuts straight to your heart. It's this song. It's called Divine Surrendering, and it's about the surrendering process and that the release and the let go and how difficult that can be sometimes.
Literally the first lyrics of the song are give up control again, which for me is just like, holy shit, so resonating. And this idea that what is not meant for me,
Yeah.
forget the lyrics, but it's like, I release what is not meant for me.
Yeah.
Essentially, which was essentially the echoing hug from the universe that was pretty much felt through this process. Is like, it's shitty. And I've been through shitty things in the past. You know, my lowest point in life was probably, you know, certain points of our divorce and some of the nitty gritty stuff in there that was just shattering to my entire identity in life. And so oddly enough, there's a level of like trauma callus you can build. But what really made this different for me is that I felt like I don't have this like articulation or belief system around babies and spirits and souls. And it's just a giant question mark to me. And so I still believe that this is all a part of the process of having a child. I don't think that we like lost a child that's now like whose spirit is floating out there to never be realized. Maybe it's a waste of my energy to think that way. And so to me, this is just a beautiful process in the cycle of developing love, where this pain and this traumatic experience put me directly into the intensity of the love that I have the capacity for as a parent. And in the same way that when we got divorced and the pain that I felt in our loss and in the way that we hurt each other was the realizing moment for me that I loved you more than anything in the whole world. This also had a unique component of grief alchemized into this space of being so grateful for the capacity that I have to love another human being, to love another life form. And I wasn't trying to like, you know, spiritually bypass my way through it, but rather I think I used the term sacred sadness. Like, this sadness really sucks, but it has a purpose, and it's actually a part of the spectrum of love that if I'm signing up for this human life experience, which I am, my soul did somewhere, I've asked for it all. And in order to appreciate those, you know, frickin' icing on the cake moments in life and what I expect to be parenting, you're also signing up for that polarizing effect. And so while being in it was shitty, what I felt really empowered by was that I've chosen this, and that this is the full meal. Like, this is the full meal of life, of parenting, of our relationship. And so the ceremony that you led and orchestrated, you know, you had me read the letter that you wrote, which was really the first time that I had a much emotion, because I was trying to be so dialed in. It wasn't even conscious dialed in. It was just like, it was happening on auto. But I just, fuck, it was so beautiful and just brutal. And so we just shared some tears and prayed and communicated with the being that I believe to be out there for incarnation, and just sat in this sacred sadness, but also in this deep reverence for this unique string or component of love that we are now experiencing for the first time in the form of being parents, or potential parents or whatever. And so, damn, talk about a new level of understanding for the term alchemize.
Yeah.
Taking something that is painful and bringing it into this cauldron of our relationship and the love that we have for each other and this little being, and turning it into something that has the potential for not only like lessons and learnings and, you know, appreciation and stuff, but this moment to really, really anchor into this process and this divine surrender and this reminder that, holy shit, we don't really control anything.
Yeah.
And we can be so dialed in on our health and our intentions, and we can have this magical, beautiful trip and conception story and have friends, and it seems so perfect. You know, so fucking storybook. I can't wait to tell everybody on the podcast about how perfect it was. Only to just be in this like very, very raw human experience, and to only have one option, or I guess it's two. You can be depressed and shitty and think victim, or you can just bow to this divine formula that is upon us and sit in surrender to what is and what will be.
Right. And by the way, we're not judging anyone who has been in a depressed state because of really tough circumstances like a pregnancy loss. We're not downplaying that grief at all. What we're talking about is our experience and what we felt, which everyone is entitled to their own experience and their own feelings in this type of situation. But we ended the ceremony by saging each other in honor of this life. And then also, like I said, staying open, like sort of like clearing the air, and saying thank you to the little life. And honestly, like this ceremony, I couldn't have anticipated how much it helped. Like, I was actually shocked how much it helped me in the release, in the acceptance, in the I'm still keeping my heart open process, because I can just see how people just want to close in. And so, this is a PSA for anyone out there, because it's not normal when you have a pregnancy loss, especially early on, to have like a funeral or anything like that. Like, people are just expected, oh yeah, it's really common, just, move on and go to work on Monday. Right. And, I don't think that's normal. I don't think it's necessarily helpful to the process to just like, okay, I guess I just have to move on. Like, having something, a container, it doesn't have to look exactly like what we did. Make it your own. But, someone out there listening is going to experience this. Just looking at the statistics, like up to 20% of all pregnancies and up to 50% of first-time pregnancies ending in miscarriage, is really startling. And it's just like, holy shit. That is significant. So statistically speaking, there's someone listening right now that may have to deal with this. And so, just something to think about is like,
well, it's not, obviously it's there's a lot of traumatic things that happen in life.
Yeah.
And, I don't know how to place a trauma scale. But this is somewhere. It's definitely not the worst thing that can ever happen. But it was definitely pretty rough for our life that has been pretty damn good. But in the same way that you incur a physical injury and, you're not going into physical therapy the next day, or you're not trying to like massage out the knot in your leg upon, seconds after impact. Mm-hmm. Give it a minute. You let it kind of process through. You scope the damages. And when the time is right, you need to get into that leg and massage the knot out, or give it some blood flow.
Yeah.
And metabolize the wound a little bit. And there was a process for this, and it's so perfectly structured by you, that required a little bit of that exercising, if you will. And so I think, it's an intuitive assessment. Mm-hmm. I don't think it can be surgically assessed like you would something physical.
Yeah.
But it's an emotional wound, and it's an emotional, intuitive approach to then exercise that wound in a way that can be not even repurposed. It's just addressed and honored.
Yeah, I'm very, very glad that we did that little ceremony. It helped so much. And We got through the next 3 weeks of June, piecing our life in sort of pieces and boxes.
Yeah, a day later, we found out that our car was totaled, which was pleasant, and had to buy a car off the lot that day, essentially.
Yeah.
Bunch of other wild inconveniences that were sort of just laughable at that point. It was like, okay, whatever you need, God, like the scene in Forrest Gump when Lieutenant Dan is sitting on the boat and there's like a storm coming and he's like, what else do you want? It wasn't that intense, obviously, but yeah, we didn't have an option to really like sit around. So we just kind of hit the ground, running, and sleepless nights and lots of work. And then obviously a little time for your body to heal, but then a week or two into it, we were both just like burning the candle at both ends. And thank God, all things considered, we're here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I just want to share, I wrote down some things, learnings or silver linings, you could say, through this process, that I hope may resonate or help someone else out there who's listening who has experienced something like this. So the first is just surrendering to the process. No matter how much you prep or research or read or whatever, Mother Nature can still yank the rug out from under you. And that's, like you said, part of what we sign up for when we get into this body, when we incarnate. It's like we're saying yes to it. And so this is not like a what did I do wrong? Woe is me, blame game type of thing. It's just like, yeah, even with all the prep and research that I've done the last 2 years on pregnancy and all of that and birth, like prepping my body and mind and whatever, it's like, this is just a potential part of the process. Learning how to surrender to the adventure of parenthood before we're actually, like baby in our hands parents, it's just like, bitch, surrender. I haven't experienced real grief in a very long time, and certainly not ever this deep. I've had death in my family. Obviously, our divorce was a different type of grief for me, but it was like the feeling of like, oh, this is what it feels like to have your heart ripped out of your chest. That's basically what it felt like. And it's part of the human cornucopia of experiences. And none of us are immune to grief. It's gonna come for us all at some point. It really, like I said before, it really put me in touch with friends, family, strangers, just women in general who have had this before. It really put me in touch with the empathy I have for women who have experienced this. And it's like this weird bond, this weird connection. The amount of, I shared briefly on my Instagram about the pregnancy loss, and I just briefly shared about it on my story. And the amount of women that I had, message me and like send me kind, loving words and that they had gone through something similar was just astounding. It's just wild how common this is. Having more empathy in your life is never a bad thing. How you act on it, but like empathy in general is a good thing. Some silver linings: when we do get pregnant again, the feeling and the experience of having the pregnancy loss, I know, is going to anchor me in gratitude, even on the really, really hard days. Pregnancy is not always a cakewalk. Usually not, especially towards the end.
I don't know. It looks pretty easy.
Usually towards the end, when women are just like, everything is uncomfortable. It's just tough. And you're just like so ready to have this baby out. And then the baby is out and it's like, holy shit, I thought I was tired before. Mm-hmm. And, it's this whole new identity that you have to adjust to with yourself and your baby and your partner all at once. And you're learning so many things all at once, and so many people get overwhelmed. Those are going to be some really challenging times that we get to navigate through together. And I am now grateful for this potential anchor in gratitude, knowing how much this pregnancy was wanted, because I experienced the loss of it, And I think just in general, experiencing the grief of pregnancy loss really shined a light on how much you can love. And like the capacity of love is just wild, even for a little embryo that you've never even seen. We hadn't even had an ultrasound yet and seen little or heard the heartbeat or anything. And the level of pain and grief was deep because the love was just as deep. And the human capacity for love is wild, dude. It's just like amazing. And it's one of the reasons why life is so magical. We get to love things. Mm-hmm. And when you experience loss, like you said, with our divorce and everything, like when you experience loss, it really shines a light on how much you loved and can love.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, we just cleaned out our entire condo. And when you remove all the stuff, you go, man, this is actually pretty spacious.
Yeah.
This place is pretty big. And when you remove sometimes the noise and the chaos and the excitement, even about certain things, and you realize that it's gone, you're like, holy shit, there was a lot here. I had a lot of capacity for this love thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely been a really beautiful learning opportunity. Obviously the last thing we wanted to do was like personal development our way through it, or spiritually bypass our way through it. So we really did try to sit in the feelings authentically. But it's been intense. And I think that, for me, going into the intention of wanting to conceive again and have another crack at this thing, I'm really trying to release myself from feeling a nervousness around the next pregnancy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And all of the things that I said through the miscarriage in the form of divine surrender and really at the feet of this beautiful process that we call nature, I'm taking that into this, next experience. And for all we know, we could be, pregnant again right now. We're technically back on the saddle.
Back on the conception horse.
Back on that conception horse. But that will be something that will be echoing through my mind, is to not have or to honor the nervousness or the anxiety that's felt, but not dwell upon it, not allow my decisions and my behavior to manifest in a way that embodies some level of anxiety or nervousness. And so that'll definitely be on the forefront of my mind. And yeah, another thing that if we're talking about silver linings, like I dove into, and as did you, this magical process that's called birth and pregnancy. And I know you've been doing this for years, and I've, only recently had much more than just, listening to you tell me about it. But I really wanted to get more of the X's and O's, between various podcasts and research. And God, I spent way too long on these really, really emotionally turbulent miscarriage forums. But this process is just incredible. And the fact that our world pays such little attention to it, I can see why this birth space is such a domain of just avid participants, because it is psychedelic, and it's really, really incredible what nature is doing without our control. And surely enough, there's plenty of control in the form of mainstream pregnancy and birth, but it really does seem like it's this, the less you intervene, the better, and the more you can surrender, the better. And all of that just to say the awe moments, the moments of just wow and wonder to God or the universe in its infinite wisdom and its orchestration of this process is just really incredible. And I'm just another one of those moments where you're just like, wow, I'm so out of control in this environment.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that, I mean, we do have a lot of control over our health, which it, like, you know, directly impacts pregnancy. So I'm not trying to say that like I have no control over, you know, any of this, because what I can control, I am.
Yeah.
Nutrition, sleep, hydration.
You can support.
You know, supplements. I can control what I'm doing in my life and how that affects or potentially contributes to a healthy pregnancy. I can't control, you know, abnormalities and genetic, you know, problems or something like that. But like what I'm doing in my life, I can control. And so that's what I'm doing. And so if we talk about like what now, like where are we at now? This was about a month ago that this happened. There's a lot of research to show actually like shortly after a miscarriage is a prime time to try again. And there's no medical benefit to like waiting. Like they used to say, you know, I don't know, 40, 50 years ago, they used to like be like, wait 3 months before you try again. And really there's a lot of new research out and everything to show that like actually right after miscarriage is prime time. Your body is primed. The hormones and the signals and everything that has to happen is like, it's almost like you're warmed up, right? And so they were like, you know, if you feel up to it, if you're emotionally stable and all of these things, like there's no reason to wait. And I felt the same, and I think you did too. Well, I know you did. Where we were like, yeah, we're still very ready. Like I don't need more time to process this. And I don't think it's unkind to my body. In fact, I think that she's ready to go. Like my body is ready to go, you know? So, I've always thought, well, not always, but like within the last, I don't know, 4 years of us being back together in part 2, I've always like, oh, this would be a really cool place to conceive up at Priest. Again, no pressure on myself or you or us, but I have thought that for a very long time, that the energy here and how much we love the love that is like infused into this place and our experience. Yeah, like
whatever. I'm in just surrender to the process.
Right. I'm just saying
like wherever, whenever I'm here, universe.
Yeah.
I'm open.
Right.
It could be in the back of the car, you know, whatever.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. We're back on the conception horse. Again, we're not like blaming or, you know, like flogging ourselves, but we are asking the question, both of us, is there something else I can optimize? Is there something else that maybe I wasn't optimizing before that I can lean into now? And, you know, when we were in Greece and Italy, we were on vacation. And so like I was drinking wine and we were, you know, not sleeping great and some other things. And so it was just like I was, you know, drinking all the coffee I wanted. And it was just like I probably would have been doing things a little bit differently had I known for sure I was pregnant. I wouldn't have been drinking any wine and all of these things. So obviously those things I can optimize. I stopped using Dandy Blend. So I love the Dandy Blend product that we've used for like a year now. It's a really good coffee alternative, but I did find online that it can weaken the uterus and it can potentially cause or contribute to potential bleeding, miscarriage, things like that. So I stopped using that. I'm only having 1 cup of coffee a day. I'm taking an egg quality supplement from the brand Needed, which I was already taking their prenatal and their fish oil, but I also added the egg support supplement. And I'm going to keep a close eye on progesterone levels. Obviously, progesterone has to stay high in pregnancy. for things to be healthy. And so I don't know if my progesterone is low right now, but I am going to be keeping a closer eye on it when we do get pregnant. And I'm not against supplementing with bioidentical progesterone if I need to. And just, I think there's some people who are like, don't want any interventions whatsoever and don't want to take anything. And I'm just not. I want to do what is necessary. I want to do what feels good to me and what will bring me peace. And if my progesterone is questionable and supplementing with bioidentical will help, then that's going to bring me peace. So just want to throw that out there. And I think just being up here is, I know it's contributing to calming my nervous system, being immersed in nature, in our favorite place on earth.
The signaling to the body is life affirming.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But thank you guys for hanging out with us and listening to our experience. I know we are not unique in this, and we'll obviously keep you guys updated, but once we get pregnant again, we may or may not share. We don't know. We're just going to kind of go with our intuition and we'll share when the time is right. But,
and we're open books. Please reach out with any questions or comments. Overwhelmed by the level of love that we've experienced from our community, our podcast community. People like Niels and Marissa, I don't know what I'd do without them. It's, when shit hits the fan in your life, you quickly orient the people that you can trust. And I'm so grateful for those two. So grateful for Paul Check and his beautiful family, for our families, our siblings, our parents, even, seemingly people that we would have never considered, neighbors and things like that were just poured out their heart in support. And again, painful, but the silver linings are not a way to bypass the experience, but have been just incredible reminders of how much love we have in our life. And for that, I am truly no cliche here, but really I'm going to look back on this and realize that it was one of those moments. And I'll remember my 34th year of life, literally a week after my birthday, as having been given this really incredible lesson and opportunity to then do something with. So big shout out to the universe. Thank you.
One is enough.
I'll take it.
Yeah. All right, you guys, thanks for hanging out with us. And if this resonated, or if you know someone that's been through pregnancy loss, we would love if you could share the episode, and hopefully this helps in some way. We appreciate you and love you, and we'll talk to you next time. Go spread some light. Okay, bye.
Thank you so much for listening.
If you enjoyed that, check out right over here for some more fun clips.
Oh, and you're going to want to subscribe.
Bye.